I never thought the worst moment of my life would happen in front of half the neighborhood. It was a Saturday, the air thick with barbecue smoke and suburban cheer. Our cul-de-sac in Palo Alto was buzzing, folding tables stacked with finger foods, kids darting between balloon clusters, and a local jazz trio plinking away near the cul-de-sac median. It was a school fundraiser, the kind where everyone pretends they aren't secretly judging your landscaping or your marriage. I was manning the science club's raffle booth, test tubes and novelty goggles, the works, when I heard my name. Liam. I turned just in time to see Vivien walking toward me in a red dress that didn't belong in daylight. Her heels clicked like punctuation, and trailing behind her, like some smug puppy off-leash, was Bryce. He looked like he'd stepped out of a Zillow ad, all teeth, tan, and tight slacks. The guy was a local real estate agent who thought he was God's gift to architecture. What he was doing with Vivien was something I hadn't let myself fully admit until that second. I took a step forward. Vivien? What? Before I could get anything else out, Bryce was in front of me. He smirked. You should be thanking me, man. Someone had to show her what a real man looks like. The words barely landed before his palm did. It wasn't a punch, just a shove, but it was enough to knock me off balance and onto the sidewalk, right in front of the fundraiser sign that read "Support Our Kids." My palms scraped concrete, and I heard gasps, phones clicking on. A crowd was forming. The twins, Max and Owen, were frozen mid-sprint just a few feet away, wide-eyed. Vivien didn't flinch. She didn't run to help or scold Bryce. She just stood there with one hand on her hip, watching, smiling. That was the part that broke me. Bryce crouched slightly. What's the matter, science boy? Don't like getting a taste of your own weakness? The laughter. From him. From someone in the crowd. It rang in my ears. And I snapped. I stood up, fists clenched, and before I could stop myself, I hit him. Hard. Right in the jaw. He stumbled backward, slamming into the raffle table, test tubes clattering like shrapnel. He stayed down, groaning. Dad, Max said, his voice cracking. I wiped blood from my knuckles. My breath came in shallow, angry bursts. Vivien stared at me, her face stone cold. You just made everything worse, she said. I didn't reply. I turned to Max and Owen. Get your backpacks. We're leaving. But the fundraiser, Owen began. We're leaving, I said again. My voice wasn't loud, but it was final. I didn't look back at Vivien or Bryce. I didn't need to. That image, her standing there while he shoved me, was seared into my skull like a scar. As I led the boys through the crowd, people whispered, phones hovered, eyes darted. I didn't care. Every step away from that sidewalk was a step toward whatever came next, and I already knew I'd never look at her the same again. Hannah didn't say a word when she opened the door. She just looked at my busted lip, at Max's tear-streaked face, at Owen's clenched fists. Then she stepped aside and let us in. Her farmhouse sat on the outskirts of Petaluma, all rolling fields and quiet. No jazz trios. No fundraiser banners. No one watching us like a train wreck they couldn't turn away from. Just space and silence. The boys headed straight for the guest room they always stayed in. Hannah had kept it the same since they were 5. Bunk beds, comic book posters, a beanbag chair that was half deflated but still familiar. I stood in her kitchen like I didn't know what to do with myself. My shirt was wrinkled, my hands scraped. My face felt tight where the skin had split. Hannah poured me a drink, something dark and warm. I sat at her table and stared into it like it might show me answers. She was there, I finally said. She watched it happen. Hannah pulled a chair out across from me, her expression calm. I figured. She didn't even try to stop him, I said. Didn't flinch. Didn't say a damn word. She nodded slowly, letting me talk. That's what Hannah did. Always had. She was 6 years older, quieter, sharper in ways that made people underestimate her. I shouldn't have hit him, I added, though I didn't mean it. But he shoved me in front of the boys. What was I supposed to do? What you did, she said matter of fact. You protected yourself. You protected them. I didn't feel like I'd protected anything. I felt like I'd walked away from a grenade with just enough shrapnel left in me to keep bleeding. That night, after the boys fell asleep, I sat on the porch with a second drink. The stars out here always looked closer, like they knew you were hurting and wanted to listen. The flashbacks hit me in waves. Vivien whispering in the bathroom with her phone cupped against her chest. Just a work call, Liam. Vivien coming home late with makeup too perfect and excuses too thin. Vivien saying, you never see me anymore. while I graded lab reports and tried to figure out how to stretch our mortgage payment another month. I remembered the way she'd stopped asking me to go to her PR galas, the way she kept changing her phone password, the way she'd started referring to me in front of her friends as the practical one. And I remembered Bryce, not just today, but the one other time I'd met him, at a charity mixer last fall. He shook my hand like it offended him, smiled at Vivien with a familiarity I didn't yet recognize. I dismissed it back then, because denial is easy when the truth is too ugly. I drained the rest of my drink and closed my eyes. Vivien didn't just cheat. She watched me hit the ground and smirked. The bruise on my jaw would fade. But that moment? That was permanent. Inside, I could hear Owen snoring and Max turning in his bed. They didn't say much during the drive, just clung to each other in the back seat like they knew the world had shifted, and they were trying not to fall off the edge. I wouldn't drink too much. I wouldn't fall apart in front of them. But I did watch the recording someone had texted me, the fundraiser incident from 3 angles. The slow motion of my fall. The crowd's gasps. Vivien's indifference. I didn't save the video. I didn't delete it either. I didn't feel proud. I felt hollow. And I knew that was just the beginning. The text came the next morning, right as I was trying to slice apples for the boys' cereal and pretend like things were normal. Vivien, you traumatized the kids. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message. My fingers tightened around the knife. Max sat at the table, still in his Spider-Man pajamas, absently flipping through a comic. Owen was curled on the couch with a blanket, pretending not to notice me reading the text. I didn't want to reply. I didn't want to give her another inch of my energy. But the anger in my chest bubbled hot. The need to respond wasn't rational, it was primal. I stepped outside, past the screen door, and dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring. Finally, she said, like I owed her that. What the hell is wrong with you? I asked. Excuse me. You let him put his hands on me. In public. In front of our children. And now you're trying to spin this like I'm the one who caused trauma. Vivien sighed, loud and dramatic, like she was already exhausted with me. Liam, you escalated. The boys were watching, and you attacked someone. What did you think they'd feel seeing their father act like a thug? You shoved me, I said, trying to keep my voice even. In front of them. You stood there and did nothing. Don't exaggerate. Bryce was upset. He didn't hurt you. You made it worse by lashing out like some angry teenager. I had to close my eyes. Gaslighting. That's what this was. I saw your face, Viv, I said quietly. You were smiling. That's ridiculous, she snapped. You're twisting everything. Maybe if you hadn't been so cold the past year, none of this would have happened. I swallowed hard. So it's my fault you had an affair? Don't act like I was getting what I needed at home, she hissed. You stopped seeing me. You buried yourself in your work, in your little experiments. I was lonely. I felt something inside me crack, but it wasn't grief this time. It was detachment. That slow, quiet disconnection you feel when you finally understand that the person you loved isn't there anymore. I'm not doing this, I said. I called to give you a chance. But you're not sorry. You're not even pretending to be. Silence. Then her voice, cold. You're being dramatic. No, I said. I'm being done. I hung up. No screaming. No threats. Just a quiet, ringing finality in my ears as I stared out at the empty field behind Hannah's house. I had spent the last year wondering if Vivien was still the woman I married. Now I had my answer. She wasn't lost. She was gone. I started with her phone records. It wasn't hard. Vivien had always been careless about tech, left things logged in, reused passwords, synced too much to the cloud. Maybe she thought I'd never look. Maybe she thought I'd never stop trusting her long enough to question anything. She was wrong. Hannah let me use her old desktop in the study, and after the boys were asleep, I sat there night after night, digging. It started with call logs. Late-night calls to a number I didn't recognize. Regular. Sometimes multiple times a day. Then texts. Hundreds of them. I didn't have the full content, just timestamps, frequency, metadata. But I didn't need the words. The pattern told the whole story. I plugged the number into a reverse lookup service. Bryce Maddox, realtor. I knew the name. I knew the face. Now I had the proof. From there, I checked social media. Vivien had a second Instagram account, a private one. I only found it because she once tagged our dog in a story, and the handle showed up in the account's connections. Stupid, really. But that's the thing about liars, they get lazy when they think they're winning. Her secret account was full of candid shots of wine glasses, hotel balconies, sunset beach walks. All tagged #self-care, Hashtag reset. Hashtag coastal living. None of them showed Bryce directly. But the reflection in her sunglasses, the second wine glass, the way she was always conveniently on a business trip, the same weekends his own account went silent, it was all there. I downloaded everything. Every screenshot, every location pin, every timestamp. Then I called my lawyer. His name was Ellis Grant, a guy I'd met through a former student's dad. Clean-cut, mid-40s, the kind of attorney who wore jeans and Blundstones but still had a voice like an anchor. I gave him the whole story, the shove, the affair, the kids. He listened, took notes, asked questions. California's no fault, he reminded me. Infidelity doesn't get you much legally. I don't care about the cheating, I said. I care about the boys. He nodded. Then this is a custody case. Ellis explained that the courts don't care who slept with who, but they do care about stability, neglect, psychological harm, exposure to dangerous environments. Document everything, he said. We build from there. That night, I organized everything into a folder. Photos, screenshots, call logs, social media posts, even old messages Vivien had sent me that hinted at lies. I zipped the file and sent it to her. No subject line, no explanation, just 3 words for the judge. She didn't reply that night, or the next, but I saw she opened the file. Twice. I wasn't doing it to scare her. I was doing it to prepare. I wasn't the man on the sidewalk anymore. I wasn't her fallback. I wasn't going to wait for another public humiliation to start acting like a father. I already was one. Now I was going to prove it. It happened 2 days later. I was in the barn behind Hannah's house, helping Max and Owen build a birdhouse. They were covered in sawdust and snack crumbs, laughing every time a nail went crooked. For the first time in weeks, the air felt light. Then I heard tires crunching gravel. Hannah was on the porch before I even got outside. You expecting someone? She asked, already knowing the answer. I stepped into the sun just as the black BMW pulled up. The door flew open before the engine stopped. Vivien climbed out first. Bryce followed, walking like he owned the place, sunglasses still on despite the shade. Oh hell, I muttered. Boys, Hannah called calmly from the porch and sighed. Now, they didn't argue. That's the thing about kids, they know when something real is about to happen. I met them halfway across the driveway. Vivien looked tired, but still polished, like she'd applied her lipstick just to spite me. Bryce looked like a man trying very hard to play calm. Hands in his pockets, shoulders square, but his jaw was tight. You've crossed a line, Vivien said without greeting. Sending that file? What is wrong with you? I gave you a chance to be honest, I said. You chose silence. So now I'm being clear. Bryce stepped forward, smirking. You think you're gonna win this? Some judge is gonna laugh you out of court, man. You're wasting everyone's time. I turned to him, calm. You're trespassing. He laughed. This your sister's farm? Not your land, not your house. You're nothing, Liam. Always were. Vivien folded her arms. You really want to do this in front of your kids? They're not out here, I said. And they've already seen enough of what you really are. Bryce scoffed. Oh, come off it. We both know this is about your pride, not your son's. You got humiliated and now you're flailing. You're not a victim. You're pathetic. I pulled my phone from my back pocket. Want to hear something pathetic? I tapped the voice memo app and hit play. Vivien's voice came out clear, sharp, unmistakable. Recorded from the call we had just days earlier. You escalated. You made it worse by lashing out like some angry teenager. Then, maybe if you hadn't been so cold the past year, none of this would have happened. Bryce's smile faded. He turned to her. You recorded that? Vivien's face drained. Liam. I told you, I said, cutting her off. I'm documenting everything. And the next time you try to twist the truth, I'll play it louder. She took a step back, her composure cracking. You can't use that in court, she snapped. I shrugged. We'll see what the judge thinks. But I don't need it for court. I just need you to hear what you sound like. Bryce stared at her, piecing it together. You used me, he said slowly. This wasn't about us. This was about control. She didn't respond. He turned to me. Good luck with her, man. You're gonna need it. Then he turned and walked to the car. Vivien lingered. Her hands shook, just slightly. I hope you know what you're doing, she said. I do, I replied. For the first time in a long time. She followed Bryce without another word. When the car pulled away, Hannah came back out, arms crossed. Well, that was gross. Yeah, I muttered. But inside, I felt still. Like the scales had shifted, not all the way, But enough. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was taking control. The call came on a Thursday afternoon, just as I was restocking Hannah's pantry. Owen wanted more of those seaweed snack packs, and I was just grateful he was eating again. Mr. Corbin? The school secretary sounded hesitant, almost rehearsed. There's been an incident. Can you come in? I was there in 20 minutes. Max sat in the principal's office, arms crossed, a welt forming on his cheek. His hoodie was bunched in his lap. Owen sat next to him, biting a thumbnail and refusing to look at anyone. Principal Deutsch gave me that sympathetic look I'd grown to hate. The kind people give when they don't know your whole story but think they do. Max punched another student, she said. Unprovoked, according to witnesses. We're looking at a one-day suspension. I turned to my son. Max. His jaw tightened. He said you weren't our real dad anymore. That mom has a new family now. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. He said Bryce is our stepdad now, Max added, voice low. That we got upgraded. Owen finally looked up, eyes wet. They all laughed. I took a breath. And you hit him? Max nodded without apology. Principal Deutsch cleared her throat. While I understand this is a sensitive situation, we do have rules. I'm not excusing it, I said. I'll talk to him. She looked surprised. Maybe she expected me to yell. But Max wasn't the one who needed that lecture. After we left, I bought them milkshakes and parked under a tree by the river. I'm not mad, I told Max, but hitting someone won't fix what's going on. He stared at his cup. I just got tired of pretending it's all okay. I know, buddy. I paused. But you can't let their lies change who you are. Max blinked fast. Do you think she even cares? About what she's doing to us? That hurt more than anything. I think your mom's caught up in something, I said carefully. And sometimes when adults are lost, they hurt people without realizing it. Owen muttered, she knows. I didn't argue. They weren't wrong. That night, I called Vivien. She picked up after the second ring. I heard, she said. You're poisoning them. I said bluntly. Whatever game you're playing with Bryce, it's hurting them, not me. She bristled. I haven't said a word to them about you. You don't have to. They hear things. They see things. She was quiet for a second, then snapped. Maybe if you hadn't dragged them off like some wounded martyr, they wouldn't be confused. They're not confused. They're angry. And they're watching you act like none of this matters. Vivien's voice turned cold. Don't twist this around. If they hate me now, it's because you've been feeding them your version. I've been protecting them, I said. Something you stopped doing a long time ago. She hung up without another word. And I stared at my phone, more sure than ever. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a war, and my sons were the battlefield. I found out from Max. We were sitting in Hannah's living room, building a Lego set Owen had half finished weeks ago. Max was unusually quiet, twisting a red piece between his fingers. Bryce walks around the house in his underwear, he said suddenly. I looked up. What? Like, all the time? Even when we're eating? It's gross. I felt my stomach tighten. Has your mom said anything? Max shrugged. She just says he's comfortable in his home. His home. Later that night, Owen mentioned something else, that Bryce had left them alone for a couple hours during quiet time, while Vivien was out, working. No babysitter. No phone call. Just them, in a locked door. I didn't say anything right away. Didn't show them how that information made my blood go cold. But the next morning, I called Ellis, my lawyer. I think we've got more than enough to start building the case, I said. Then it's time to make it official, he said. Let's file. I hired a private investigator the same day. Not a cheap one. A real pro. Guy named Felix who looked like he lived in a hoodie and only drank black coffee. He got to work fast. Within 10 days, I had video and photos. Bryce stumbling out of bars mid-afternoon. Vivien screaming at the boys in the parking lot of a Whole Foods. A neighbor who reported hearing yelling and something break during one of the boys' visits. One photo, just one, showed Bryce tossing a beer can over their backyard fence while shirtless, Max visible in the background. I included it all in the custody petition. Ellis helped me file for emergency modification. The request was clear. I wanted full physical custody, supervised visitation for Vivien. It was bold, aggressive, but necessary. Vivien got the papers on a Tuesday morning. By noon, she called 12 times. I didn't pick up. By 2 o'clock, Bryce had sent me a series of unhinged messages. Bryce, you think you're gonna win with some staged pictures? Bryce, you're pathetic, man. Get over it. Bryce, she chose me. That night, I found my car keyed from front to back. The word liar scraped deep into the passenger side door. I didn't have proof it was him. But Felix had already anticipated something like this. He checked the traffic camera 2 streets over, pulled a blurry but usable frame of Bryce's car parked nearby around the same time. I filed a police report, attached it to the custody request. Vivien's fury was like a fire losing oxygen, wild, desperate, out of control. The next day, she emailed Ellis. Vivien, I will not be intimidated by this abusive behavior. Liam has always used money and guilt to manipulate me. Ellis read it aloud and shook his head. She doesn't understand. This isn't a PR spin. It's a court process. That night, Max woke up from a nightmare. I sat on the floor next to his bed while he clutched my arm. Are we going to have to go back? He whispered. I swallowed hard. Not if I can help it. And for the first time since this mess began, I believed it. It was just past 9 when the doorbell rang. Hannah and the boys were already asleep, the house tucked in quiet. I was on the couch with a laptop open, reading yet another email from Ellis about upcoming court dates when the chime cut through the stillness. I knew it was her before I even looked. I opened the door slowly. Vivien stood there in a long coat, eyes puffy, makeup slightly smudged. Behind her, the driveway was empty, no Bryce. Just her, looking strangely small. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't move. Talk about what? She looked past me like she might push her way in, but something in my face must have stopped her. About the kids. About everything. I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. You've had weeks to talk. All you've done is deny, blame, and hide behind that idiot. She flinched. He's gone, she said. Moved out yesterday. I raised an eyebrow. Ran out of walls to vandalize? I didn't know he was going to do that, she muttered. You didn't know a lot of things, apparently. She folded her arms, defensively. Look, I messed up, but we need to figure this out. The boys need both parents. I leaned against the porch rail. You had both of them in your life. You just didn't treat it like it mattered. She exhaled through her nose. Can we just start over? Shared custody. Co-parenting. We can get back to something workable. No, I said, calm but final. Her face hardened. You don't get to decide that. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened an email. Want to hear what I get to decide? I scrolled and turned the screen toward her, an audio file Ellis had uploaded to the shared legal folder. It was a clip Felix had cleaned up, recorded from the day Bryce keyed my car. Bryce's voice. This is what she wants. She wants you pissed off. She wants you to lose it in court. Vivien's voice. Good. Let him show his temper. The judge needs to see the real him. She stared at the phone like it had slapped her. You recorded me? She asked, her voice sharp now. No, I said. He did. He just didn't know you were recording him too. Her mouth opened, then closed. I told you, I said. I document everything now. She blinked hard, trying to regroup. That was taken out of context. You orchestrated a setup, I cut in. You tried to trigger me, use the boys as leverage, and coach your boyfriend into getting me arrested. You threatened their stability. That's all a judge needs to see. Her voice trembled. You think you're so righteous. I shook my head. No, I just think I've had enough. She tried one last angle. You hit Bryce at that fundraiser. I can still bring that up. Use it. And I have surveillance footage of Bryce smashing my car and yelling threats. I replied evenly. That'll stack nicely against your claim. She stood there in silence, shaking slightly. You're going to lose, I said softly. Not because I want revenge, but because you lost sight of what matters. Vivien looked up at me one last time, and I saw it. That flicker of panic when someone realizes the power they thought they had is gone. She turned without another word, heels clicking across the gravel like a retreating drumbeat. And just like that, the war was nearly over. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Not some grand hall of justice, just beige walls, tired carpeting, and a judge with glasses perched low on her nose. But that morning, it felt like a battleground. Vivien wore a cream blazer and a tight, polite smile. She sat beside her attorney, whispering into his ear every few minutes like she could still control the narrative. Bryce wasn't there. Whether he'd cut ties or been cut out, I didn't know or care. I sat beside Ellis, my lawyer, our file thick with documents, photos, timelines, affidavits. Felix had provided video evidence, along with a notarized statement. The boys' school counselor had submitted an official letter outlining recent behavioral changes and concerns about their emotional safety. But the part that hit hardest, the one that made the judge raise her eyebrows, was the boys' own letters. Max had written, in big blocky handwriting, I don't feel safe at Mom's house. I want to live with Dad. Owen had drawn a house with 3 stick figures. Him, Max, and me, all smiling. Vivien's attorney objected, saying it was manipulative to involve the children so directly. The judge frowned. They weren't coached. I've seen hundreds of these. Kids don't fake fear. Vivien's jaw tightened. For once, she didn't argue. Ellis presented the timeline of incidents. The shove at the fundraiser, the voicemail threats, the unmonitored visits, the vandalism. Vivien claimed she was being painted as unstable, that it was all taken out of context. Her voice trembled, like she was reaching for sympathy she didn't really feel. But it didn't land. When the judge asked her directly, "Why did you continue to allow Mr. Maddox around your children after multiple concerning events?" Vivien stammered, "I didn't think it would escalate." "You didn't think," the judge repeated, writing something down. By the time closing statements wrapped up, I felt calm. Tired, sure, but steady. Vivien sat rigidly, eyes darting toward me once or twice, like she still couldn't believe she might actually lose. But she did. The judge read the decision aloud, clear and direct. Primary physical custody is awarded to the father, Liam Corbin. Visitation with the mother will be supervised pending completion of a parenting assessment and 6-month review. Just like that. I didn't cheer, didn't cry, just exhaled. A deep, full breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. Vivien didn't say a word as she left the courtroom, didn't look back, didn't hug the boys, who waited outside with Hannah, coloring quietly on clipboards. She just walked out. And somehow, that silence said more than any speech ever could. Life got quiet after the hearing. Not silent, exactly, not with 2 boys in the house, but calm in a way I hadn't felt in years. No raised voices, no tension hanging in the air like smoke. Just Lego bricks scattered on the floor, cereal bowls left on the counter, and the occasional knock-knock joke that didn't quite land but still made us laugh. We stayed at Hannah's a little longer while I got things in order, but eventually I moved us back to the house in Palo Alto. The one I had built with Vivien, yes, but it didn't feel like hers anymore. It was ours now. We stripped the walls, painted over the sleek gray she'd insisted on with navy blue and soft greens. The boys picked out posters. Owen chose a giant rocket ship. Max wanted a vintage baseball diagram. We ripped out the chandelier in the dining room and put in a simple light fixture shaped like a mason jar. Not trendy, just warm. It wasn't about erasing her. It was about reclaiming the space. The first night back, we all slept in the living room, wrapped in blankets, eating popcorn off paper towels, and watching the Goonies. Max fell asleep on my shoulder. Owen curled up with the dog. That's what peace felt like, not grand or cinematic, just safe. About a month later, Bryce showed up. I was outside pulling weeds from the back fence when I heard the car door. I stood slowly, brushing dirt off my knees. He looked different, not in a way I could fully explain. A little thinner, a little lost. "I'm not here to start anything," he said, holding up his hands. I didn't say anything, just waited. He scratched the back of his neck. "She burned it all down. You know that, right? It wasn't just you. She tanked my license. Told my broker I was unstable. You were just the first." I crossed my arms. "So what do you want? An apology? A drink? Closure?" "No," he said. "Just wanted you to know you were right about her. Took me way too long to see it." He looked around the yard like he expected to see Vivien step out of the house. When she didn't, he nodded slowly. "You got the good ones," he said, jerking his chin toward the house. "Take care of them." I didn't answer. He left without pushing. I watched his car disappear down the street, then went back to pulling weeds. That night, Max asked if we could build a treehouse. So we did. Weekends were for hammers and measuring tape and Owen dropping screws in the grass. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is. But when we sat up there for the first time, looking out at our backyard with the sunset behind us, I knew we were okay. Not fixed, not healed completely, but okay. Vivien faded like a shadow, still there in the corners sometimes, but powerless. And me? I wasn't the man who got shoved on the sidewalk anymore. I was the man who got back up and walked away with everything that mattered.